What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Coral Culture, Insane Reefer, Rookie Reefer. How you doing, buddy? Hopefully everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday. Today's topic, I figured we would dive into a little reef DIY and kind of chat, buying versus DIYing stuff, some of the cool stuff you can do in the hobby. Be a good one today. I know I'm definitely a fan of the DIY and making stuff, and it's always good. What's going on, Phil? Happy Wednesday, buddy. So yeah, actually, just as we're at it, if you guys have any like really cool DIY stuff you've done, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear about it. I've always got a constant stream of stuff, and half the time it's a mixture of either impatience or necessity that I decide to build something. A lot of the time it's like, oh, I have this in my shed, I have this in my shed. I know in the past, like, I made my own DIY kelp stir using an old reactor, and basically just put a magnetic stir on it, a little plate on the bottom, and it spun and did it. And I mean, it worked well. The only, I guess, downfall is you can't put too much kelp in there or you'll overload the stir bar. But I mean, that's the same thing with the ice cap and the other kind of production versions of it. Barrett, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, buddy. Happy Wednesday. Hey, Jerry. Dan, I have a 75-gallon aquarium. Should I DIY it or use the money for a water box 79 peninsula instead? Okay. Personal opinion. So again, with DIY versus buy, there's some, definitely depends. If you are, in your garage, in your man cave, your basement, whatever, you're growing coral in it, 100% DIY it. If it's in your living room, your office, or somewhere where you're like, you're showing it off, all your family, your friends are going to see it, then personally, I'm more likely going to go towards like the buy route, like, for instance, he says a water box, because it gives you that pristine, polished look. So for me, part of it depends where it is, right? Is it in your living room, or is it, in some corner of the basement, or it's just for you? So that's kind of a personal thing, and that comes into a lot of it as well, right? The other aspect too is practicality. Like I DIY'd a nano before, and it was actually, I built it with the water box ATO container that I got with my tank. And I was like, this is like a really nice tank. It's like a nice cube, it's polished edges. It was like pristine. I was like, this is a sweet nano. Now I turned that into an all-in-one tank. I have a buddy that has a laser cutter, so I got him to laser cut my baffles and stuff for me, and it was super easy to build. So again, if you have friends that have a laser cutter or a CNC, I mean, again, you can do it yourself on a saw, but that made it super duper easy to justify turning it into like a sweet nano. Actually, I think I have a photo of that one too. Yeah, so that one, yeah, so that guy completely made out of an ATO container that came with my water box. So for me, that 100% made sense to turn into an all-in-one, just because, I had access to people with some cool saws and lasers and stuff, and it was really easy to make. So, I mean, that definitely does play into it to a certain extent. Even for like frag tanks, like I know low boys are very, very popular. I had this one custom made, not that you can see it, but basically because it's in my office beside me, so I want to look more pristine. If it was my garage, wouldn't care. So one of those things. Thank you. In a basement living space. All right, Dan, hopefully that one helped on that one. A couple other random ones I've done in the past. I have made reactors, which was actually, let's see if I can find a photo of that one. It ended up being a bit of work, but it wasn't too bad. It was a while back I made those. This was many moons ago. Searching through the archives. Oh, actually one super cheap one that I would 100% recommend. Like for recirculating ozone, that was the cheapest thing ever. It was literally a Tupperware container from the dollar store that I wired up to be on top of the skimmer and run my media. So cheap, it literally cost me like dollars to make it. And it worked really, really well. So there's certain things like that where it just... Wrong tab. Where it just makes sense. It's so cheap and easy to do it. Insane Reefer. I used to have a drilled 29-gallon before I bought my 180. And how I have a Red Sea Reefer 250 in living room. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, living room tanks. I am all about like pristine, polished, sleek as possible. DIY, you do you, it all comes down to individual. It does, for sure. This hobby is very DIY friendly. honestly, most hobbies are, but this one does. And if you DIY stuff, you're going to learn to be an electrician, you're going to learn to be a plumber, you're going to learn to have tons of life skills, which, you know, the other day I was fixing like a bathtub drain. I was like, oh, I got this plumbing. If I can plumb a reef tank, I can plumb a drain. You know, so there's a lot of stuff that kind of carries over. What's going on, Josh? Brad K, hello, hello. Harkins Aquatics. Ask Reboy, picking up a JBJ 12-gallon Nano DX for $40. Nice, really solid. Need a DIY light upgrade for LED. In the past, I have made my own DIY LEDs, where I took a heatsink out of like an amp or something, and I think I bought a bunch of 3-amp LEDs, and I bought a driver, and I made my own. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that day, because it's honestly not that expensive for, you know, if you pick up like something like a blade. Like, they're relatively inexpensive. Like, honestly, I would almost just, you know, get something like that over DIY one of these days. Just because, like, the amount of work and time versus the expense, so that's a bit of a trade-off. No, it's bourbon today. Jose, I was inspired by your video for a DIY calc serve. My wife was so impressed, I told her the idea came to me in a dream. Happy to help inspire the wife. What's going on, One Iron Reefer? Yeah, so DIY calc serve. Again, I used that one for ages and it worked really, really well. And the only downfall to that one was just, you know, you can't add too much calc inside of it. Which, you know, one side you can't be as lazy, you gotta top off a little more frequently. But on the flip side, you're going to get a much higher pH out of it because you're always at max concentration, you know, because you're topping it off every, you know, 5-6 days instead of every 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's all a trade-off. Harkins Aquatics. I love how friendly the Hydros is to make DIY projects. You know, honestly, I'd say that with most controllers, but yeah, no, I do agree. Like, the inputs-outputs is the way to go. I actually haven't done a ton of DIY with the Hydros. I have done a lot of the DIY Apex stuff over the years, though. I did a DIY Chaeto Fuge my IM Innovative Marine 15-gallon AIO back chamber, worked great. Nice. One thing that I've done with that one too, with the all-in-ones, because usually it's just vinyl on the back. So if you have that chamber, you can take a razor blade and cut the vinyl and peel it back and put a light on the outside of the tank, and then backlight the Nano, and that works really well for doing a refugium in a one. You're not. Devin started 5 minutes early. I did start a few minutes early today. It was just one of those days. Figured we'd get on it. Another really big one, battery backups. I think that is a huge one for backups. If you guys are up on the videos a couple weeks ago, I did one on a 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery for the reef tank beside me, which is sweet. Now, something really cool came out of that is Power Queen contacted me and they're like, yo, we loved your video. We're happy you're legit. And they're like, you want to try out our other battery? I'm like, heck yeah, I do. So check out this baby. So I just got hooked up with a 12 volt 100 amp hour, and this is self-heating, so that's kind of cool. It's obviously bigger than the mini battery, but the cool thing is I have been debating upgrading my battery bank outside that's attached to solar that backs up the MP60s on the water box for a while. But lithium iron phosphate batteries does not like the cold. It doesn't like below freezing, and it can harm the batteries. This one has a heating pad inside of it, so if it drops below a certain temperature, it'll kick it on and actually warm up the battery from the inside so that you can keep using your battery in sub-zero temperatures, which I think is super duper cool. So I'm going to do a bit of an upgrade. I'm going to pick up a couple more and do my outside one, which is really cool. And on a plus side, if anyone wants to go hardcore into the battery backups, I got them to get me a discount code. So if anyone wants to do it, you get an extra 5% off of Power Queen lithium iron phosphate batteries. And this is Black Friday sale, so if you tag the two up, you'll get some really, really sweet deals. So let's throwing that one out there. Harkins, I got a whole home battery for the house instead. That is a sweet way to go. That is probably a very expensive way to go. I'm curious how much that cost you. But that is like 100% the way to go. At some point in time, I would love to do that, but I know that's a hefty venture. Happy with the new Waterbox 25. Very, very nice. So a couple of people were asking me before, what is the reef tank on my desk? Because I never actually said what the brand name was, and that was intentional. There's a new one out called Hello Reef, and it's basically like an all-in-one beginner kit with everything you need. And that's the tank that I have, which is a pretty sweet tank. I've been very happy setting it up. and it was just announced like the other day, so I wasn't allowed to say the name yet, but I've been playing with it for a while, trying to like make myself be a brand new reefer, you know, pretend I know nothing and try and do like just the basics, you know, go back to cycling and all that stuff. So I've been trying to like pretend I'm a new reefer again, so probably now that it's actually released I can actually do some content on it, so that'll probably come in the future. What's going on, Niagara Fire Corals? Reef Keeper, love my LG whole house battery, power goes out, tank blinks is back online. Whole house. Phil, I'm still curious, how much did that cost you, man? One day I want to do it. It'll be a while, but one day. I've been thinking about doing one just for the tank at some point. They have off-grid like solar charger inverters that you can buy, you know, for $800 to $1,500 range, and you can basically use them like a UPS. So you could hook it up to a 48-volt battery bank, like a 48-volt battery bank, and you could charge it from either solar or from the grid, and then if the power cuts out, it will draw from your battery. So you can use it like a massive UPS, but then you can run all your AC loads, aka your lights, your pumps, and everything off of it. So you could basically, your tank wouldn't miss a beat. And that's something I've debated doing, but again, that's, you know, a good few grand into that venture one day, so it might be a bit before I do that, but one day I think that'd be a cool way to do. But whole house, if you could do that, that's like the ultimate. Sailboat 9413. Anyone in the chat? I have some brown flatworms on my glass, not going away with flatworm exit or millionaires. Any other way to remove them out? Suck them out the water change hose. Depends what they are, but honestly, get a very tiny little like little hose and just suck them out when you're doing a water change and just physically remove them. You can try some damsels or other stuff to try and eat them. Yellow chorus is another really good one for eating pests, but manually removal was a good way to go. It was 10k. Yeah, that's a good chunk in a battery backup. But have 100k in coral. You see, that's what I mean. It does justify it at some point. A lot of people will have no problem spending a couple $100 on a coral, but when it comes to, you know, some kind of a backup to save your tank, you know, a lot of people don't do it. So it is definitely important. At the very least, battery backup your power heads. I will say that one, just because flow is so important. I've become a bit obsessed the last like year about battery backups. This summer there was, you know, a lovely fire. It seems to be a yearly thing now, not that far away, and you know, 20 minutes away there was people that didn't have power for like a week. And imagine having a reef tank and without power for a week. Like, that would be brutal. Without a battery backup, you'd be buggered. So honestly, I think it's very important. Harkins, I also get to sell power back to my provider at peak rates. I've made about $1,000. Sweet, that's all right. Brown could be red planaria. My guess would be planaria as well. Let's see. Let me see if I can find the photo of the one that I had. So let me. Okay, so these guys, if you can kind of see, they are like brownie orange ones. And can I zoom this anymore? So if it is those ones, flatworm exit will work. You might just need to use a higher dose. But as those guys die, they are toxic and they can release toxins into your water. I had a bunch in my sump at one point, and I basically turned off my return pump, treated the sump, sucked out as many as possible as they're dying, and then I kicked the tank back on with carbon and just, you know, make sure everything was okay after that. But so those are a bit of a bugger. They don't really hurt anything. I guess the other question is, are they on any coral? Because if they're on coral, I mean, there is other flatworms that will eat, you know, like Euphilia, for instance, or they'll more or less just block its light and kind of cover it. 100 Reefer, silly question. Can you link the Ecotech L2 straight to a battery, or do I need to use a booster cable? For the Vectra pumps, the L2, it runs at 36 volts, I believe. And you will need the battery booster cable, and the battery booster cable boosts it up from 12 volts to 24 volts so that it can still run on a battery backup mode. So you will need the battery backup cable, booster cable. Now, I've also been thinking of trying this, if I can use the same battery booster cable to power, you know, like a Nero, or can I do, you know, the new gyres, the new crossflow pumps, like can I run them off the battery booster cable as a battery backup from Ecotech, because it boosts at 24 volts, so I think it would work. I haven't tried it yet, but I will try this at some point because I'm very curious and I think it would work. Oh, 8 or 9 grand. That's actually not that bad, Phil. Not bad, not bad. Tyler Smith was just given a smart UPS 1000. Do you know if this can be connected to the Apex? Okay, so that's not going to run a ton of stuff for like a super long time, but you'll get some runtime. If you have 2 power bars, ideally I would put 1 power bar off battery backup and then just plug the other one to like a surge protector port and have 1 power bar with your critical stuff on it. And what you can do, if you take the 12 volt port on the Apex and plug it into the wall, you can have it detect when you lost power. So you can have a command in your plug saying, if power off, then on or off. So you can specify which plugs will be on or off if the power is lost. That way you can conserve only certain things are sucking from your battery backup, which will make it last longer. That's kind of how I would go with that one. Dan, I got a whole house generator with a cutover panel, so I can choose from any breaker I wish. Sweet setup, Dan. I like it. What I'm Reefer. I have the battery booster cable. I just want to run a bigger battery if you get me. Sure can. So I've done the same thing. Just cut off the end, wire it up to your own battery, and then you can just run your stuff off that. I have one wired into my batteries for my solar that is running in the water box battery backup. So again, it's, I just cut off the end and I just wired it all onto the 2 leads for my batteries. Insane Reefer, what are your thoughts on DIY reef snow from Sunny, the reef site docks? I'm thinking about doing it for water clarity. I don't know about Sunny reef site, but DIY coral snow is basically like a calcium carbonate, like a chalk powder almost. And yeah, 100% you can DIY it and it'll be very similar effects. I haven't personally done it, but I know a lot of people that have, so I wouldn't hesitate to do it. So I think it'll be good. Usually something I do maybe like the day before you do a big water change as well. What it does is it acts as a flocculant and it will bind any like particles in the water, which will then get sucked in through your socks or your filtration, and it really does help add a lot of clarity to the water. I'll get one on Reefer. I'll get one and a trickle charger. Excellent. Pretty solid. That is, yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. I have an obsession with battery backups lately. It's just, they're so cool. New AI X pump, 12 or 24 pump. It is 24 pump. So again, you could make me list stuff. Option A would be to take 2 batteries and run them in series, which means you go negative, positive, and then positive, negative. So you basically have 2 batteries in a row, then you take off the first and last battery, and that will double your voltage. So that would give you 24 volt, 100 amp hours, and you can run directly. Or you could pick up, in theory, I haven't tested this, but I don't see why it wouldn't work, but you could pick up something like the Ecotech booster cable for the Vectra, and that plug might even fit directly into it, or you might need to do a new plug on the end, but I think that would also work. I've had a few over the last few weeks. I'm so small, doesn't have flooding there. So yeah, so looking at gear, battery booster, again, if you want to make your own, you can go look up a battery or a voltage amplifier or a voltage booster, whatever you want to call it, off Amazon, and probably make your own. Or you could just buy that one that already works. So a few different options on that one. One on Reefer. Do you get lots of power cuts? It's really weird. For power, just like in general, my power is really good. But then there's been times where it's like super flaky for like a week. So it really depends. Harkins Aquatics. If I have over 2,500 in coral, then I'm spend 250 on a solar battery backup for it at least the power head, 100%. Power head, hands down, most important. Atkins Nature Aquarium, what's up? Lurking at work? Welcome. Yeah, if nothing else, back up a power head. Flow in your tank is hands down the most important thing. You can go without light for a while, you can go without your skimmer for a while. If you're somewhere really cold, eventually your tank will get cold without a heater, but flow is hands down the most important. Phil, those lithium iron phosphate batteries are light. It really is. Like, seeing how big this is, like, I could not do this with a lead acid battery with one arm. Like, it's crazy. This one's a little bit heavier. The other one I have, the mini, is even lighter than this one. It's crazy. I don't know. I'm pretty stoked for those. I'm like a slight obsession now. Anyways, so if anyone wants to get a lithium iron phosphate battery, you get an extra 5% off with the code ReefDudes. Just throwing that out there. I was stoked to get them to give me a ReefDudes coupon code. Oh yeah. But combine that Black Friday sales, sweet deal. You can run what you have on 12 volts on the first battery and on 24 volt from both of them in series simultaneously. Battery booster will cost you watts. You could wire them in series and tap into one and then tap into the other. You would just want to make sure you do it fairly evenly because you'd want the batteries to stay balanced. Again, you could just periodically just disconnect them and give each one a full charge too at some point, just to like make sure everything's rebalanced. That's the only real worry if you're running, you know, splitting and tapping off like half of your load versus the other half of the load on the batteries. Yeah, because if one, I know if you use an older battery, like one's degraded in the running in parallel, you'll only get as much as like the least one to a sense. Hydros or Apex, never had a controller, but looking at both companies, some automation and recording the basic info. Either one will do that for you, Ben. Personal opinion, if you go the Hydros route, get one of the wired power bars, not the Wi-Fi one. I've had GHL, I've had Hydros, I've had Apex, you know, and they all will work well for all the basic stuff. GHL I feel is like one of the best like build qualities, but the programming is a bit of a pain. It's not as intuitive. Hydros is kind of in the middle. Like they have a fairly easy interface for all the basics, minus the Wi-Fi one, but I just had issues with it. But the wired ones are probably fine. For the Neptune, I miss the old metal boxes. I really like the more industrial ones over the plastic ones, but I do prefer Neptune's interface the most, and I find it easier to do some more advanced stuff with it. And I find they have the most widespread base of add-ons you can use. So you can kind of do more with it. You've even had a brand that doesn't exist. Yeah, I also had the, what's it called? E-Coral. I had the E-Coral for a while as well. I gave that one to a buddy. I think it's still rolling on his tank. And I've even made DIY controllers back in the day. So, I mean, honestly, they all have pros and cons. They're all going to do well for the basics. So it depends. Yeah, no issues with my Wi-Fi power strips. You know what I think? I think what it might be, I have 4 access points in my house, and they're all distributed. It's more of like a business. I work in IT. I have more of a business grade network. And I think the fact that with all the different signals, even though they're the same, and you can easily roam from one to the thing without an issue, I think that had some issues with the Wi-Fi ones. So that was kind of my one thing. Even the single power bar, I set it up to run a mister for Varium, but then the plug would just stop responding after a while, and I couldn't figure out why. What are your thoughts on the Hydros Kraken? Okay, so Hydros Kraken is basically their battery backup solution. And you could hook it up to your own 12-volt battery, and it will, you know, back up a chunk of stuff on it. I guess the other big selling point is it lets you get rid of a bunch of power bricks, which, you know, 50-50 on this one. Half of me says I love getting rid of power bricks. I love less clutter in my stand. That is awesome. And then the other half of me is like, okay, if that died, then I lose everything on it. So part of me is like, sweet, less clutter, you know, less plugs. That's awesome. And the other part of me is like, is it a single point of failure now? So I don't know, mixed opinions. I think it's a very cool product, but that's kind of like my Jekyll and Hyde in my mind on that. It is designed to work with a lead acid battery. If you're using a lithium iron phosphate battery, you have to disable the charging in it because it's not set up to charge at the proper voltage for lithium iron phosphate. So then you'd have to charge on your own, either periodically or, you know, lithium iron phosphate trickle charger. Now, personally, at this stage in the game, I wouldn't buy lead acid batteries anymore for backup because you only get half of the one. They're heavy. They do have a certain lifespan, so they will degrade over time. And the other big thing is you only technically get half of the usable thing. So if it's 100 amp hours, you can only use 50% of that. So you're really getting like a 50 amp hour battery, where something like this with the lithium iron phosphate, you get 100% of it. I could use all 100 amp hours, not just 50. So I don't know. Personally, they're more money up front, but they're going to last you 10, 15 years plus, and they're light, and you get more capacity. Like, to me, it's hard to, I couldn't go back now. I know Wi-Fi. The lithium iron phosphate should have built-in cell balancing for charging. They do for their internal cells. It was more for if you're balancing with multiple batteries. I mean, I've 100% done with lead. I haven't tried it yet with lithium iron phosphate. Insane Reefer. I use my Apex to monitor and to cut the calc dose if it goes above 8.3. Yeah, personally, I find the programming is the advanced stuff super easy with Apex, but I've also used it for many years. So I'm very proficient and I find it really easy to just do certain things with it. So I tend to lean towards it now. I have a tank outside, and the only one I have Wi-Fi power stress problem. Oh, interesting. Twins Reef, if you had the opportunity to run whichever LED and power head in the industry, which LEDs would you use? I honestly probably do have the option to run basically any LED and power heads, and honestly my go-to would be the Radions and the Vortex. I am a fan of no wires in the tank. I love how easy it is to pop off the wet side and then put a new one on and then clean it. And I love how it's built-in battery backup port. You don't need to like rig up anything. You just plug in a wire, plug in a battery, done. So those are honestly my go-tos. Like I am playing with the gyres now, but again, it's hard to beat that Vortex just for how easy it is to maintain and the features that you get with it. Lights, again, I tend to favor the Radions. I like the Radion Pros personally. Lots of people like the blues, but I like the Pros for the more full spectrum. I feel the extra white full spectrum also gives you better growth out of your acros. You know, you can get, more black light party color pop out of the blues, but that more full spectrum, I feel like it grows the corals a bit better. So, personal thoughts. Atkins, Hydros X3, love it. Using Wi-Fi bars, no problems. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I have a theory that it just does not like Ubiquiti or Unify setups. Josh, unrelated DIY. I have an XR15 Blue IM50 Lagoon. Nice tank. I like this. Not too happy with the par, but lack of white. Want to do something with more white, more par. Thoughts about an XR30 Pro? Totally do the Pro. Now, personally, I would just do the Pro, especially if you want more white. Because you can sell the blue look, or you can have the white look. And if you use my schedule, you get both on the same day, and you get the best of all the worlds. Thanks for your thoughts. You are most welcome. New test tacking with Hydros. Tracking? One thing I do like about Hydros, because I have the Alcatronic and Mastertronic, I really appreciate how they interface with it over the internet. So you don't have to hook it up. There's no wires. You can pull the results. I do appreciate that. I do like how they're integrating with stuff. And it'd be nice if all of the companies did the same thing. But even like my Aquatic Life barrel buddy for managing my RODI setup. The network you have is absolutely the issue. Dang, I have like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably something to do with my thing, because I'm pretty sure I talked to someone else that had issues that also had a similar thing. But I mean, it's a very like robust, like business grade network. Like there should not be issues, but ceiling has issues. So, okay, Brad, what you said. So what's your thoughts on the new Radion lenses coming out with a narrow light angle for distribution? So this is a good one. So since they're actually public, I haven't tried them yet, but I might pick up some to play with. Basically, if you look back to, was it the Gen 3s or the Gen 4s, where you could pick which lens you want? They had a narrow or a wide angle lens. Now, if you have your lights, 7 or 8 inches from the water, you probably want the wide angle lens. But if you have your lights really high up, you're going to want a narrow lens so you have less light spill and more focusing down on the tank. And I'm pretty sure this came out to target more like the coral facilities, because if you have right tanks growing coral, generally your lights are higher up for more spread, and you're in the tank working a lot, so there's more of a gap. And that's where you're going to get a lot more par. Because you're going to have the same, the light puts out X number of par, and you can spread it over that, or you can spread it over that, and you're just like focusing or spreading out those same photons. So I think it all depends how your lights are set up. How close to the water they are, and or if you have a really deep tank, you're going to want the more narrow lenses to get a little more punch deeper down. So I don't know, I will probably see if I can acquire some and play with some on the water boxes to kind of compare them, but yeah, so it kind of depends on your setup. DJ Mike, making a DIY for Clarity to make it smart by running on a motor drive port on the Hydros float sensor. Can monitor the usage of the roller and take away an extra plug used in drive port. Sweet. I like it. John Wright, simple but made an acclimation box 10 by 6 for $4. Hey, you can't beat that. Can't beat that one bit. Harkins Aquatic had an enterprise system on my house and had the same problem. There you go, man. My Wi-Fi's... I don't understand why it's a problem. My only guess is it has an issue with multiple access points with the same SSID, and it can't handle the roaming. That's kind of my guess, because I separated out a 2.4, you know, IoT style network, and still had issues, so not sure. Jay, XR30 G5 Pro my Waterbox 10. That is the most hardcore 10 gallon ever, buddy. I can see even an XR15 would be overkill, but a 30 on a 10 gallon? Insane. Atkins Nature Aquarium, where can I find RODI bulkheads using the water bottle barrels for making a gravity fed DIY? The ones I got from BRS don't have any seal. You can put your own seal on it. You could just use like a little U-shape. If you create a siphon, if you have a tube that's in here and over there, just use 290s and do like a U. It will hold that siphon as long as it doesn't ever run dry. So that's one really easy way to do it. If you don't want to have a submerged bulkhead, or if you do, I've used those in the past, and I just used like an O-ring or a piece of rubber or something in my own little seal. Or you could use silicone or something like that. Yeah, what the heck are you growing with an XR30 on 10 gallon? Or you just had it laying around and just running it at like 5%. Crazy, man. Yeah, no, I'm really interested. What system are you running for your prior networking there, Harkins? I'm curious. That's overkill, but why not? I just put a Castle AP700 on my 14 gallon. Why not? I'm already out laying around. I would agree. If it's laying around, why not, right? Had it left over for my big tank, so said, why the heck not runs to 25%? That is awesome. I have a buddy that has like a 50 gallon or something with an XR15 on it. Again, overkill, but I love it. I mean, if you already... Okay, this is like a really good point. If you ever are moving or something and you want to sell your tank, the odds are you'll get back into reefing eventually. So it is always wise to keep your gear, because then it makes it very cheap and affordable to get back in. Then you just pick up a tank and you got all the essentials. Like you have, you know, your ATO, your lights, your power reds, all that jazz. So always wise to kind of keep what you had laying around for future tanks. I don't know. I still have intentions to move my office. That same thing. I'm like, do I change the tanks? Do I keep it? I don't know. We'll see. Part of me has been debating and doing a bunch of smaller tanks, have different themes, but I don't know. Still to be determined on that one. How's your current light schedule changed since y'all posted years ago? My light schedule's barely changed, to be honest. The Mobius schedule, or again, my Apex one's basically the same. Yeah, let's try and figure out my login. And I will show you. Yeah, I remembered it. Raytheon schedule. Since I currently have it set up on the Apex, I'll show you that one. It will fit. So this is basically my Apex version of my schedule that I had on Mobius. So basically it starts very blue, more AB plus style in the morning, kind of in the evening, and as it comes up here, it comes into my very white, brighter period of the day. So basically 100% on all of the glowy channels, 40% on the whites, 30-30 for the green and red. This was kind of what I consider the more like highlight period of the day. Goes in, as it goes in more in the afternoon, it starts to drop down, and it goes back to more of an AB plus schedule. Then same thing at nighttime. This goes more into the very heavy glue blowy look, kind of for morning and night set. Sorry, you guys can't see the things at the bottom, the sliders. Yeah, so it kind of depends on the time of day and what it is, but I'm a big fan. Like in the morning, my tank, you know, it starts out very blue. As it gets around lunchtime-ish, noon, it gets into, so yeah, 11:30 a.m. it gets very white. Now you still get all the color, the nice color pop. You still got the really nice color rendition, but it's more of a crisp, whiter brightness. And then I have that from 11:30 to 4:30, 14:30, so 2:30. And then it drops down a little bit. And then it goes back to an AB plus for the afternoon until nighttime, till around 8, quarter after 8, when it starts to dim down from there and go into more like the blue AB pluses. Phil, I always keep my old gear. Looks like a reefing episode of Hoarders. Comes in handy more times than not. So true. Yeah, I'm with you. Eventually I'll like give away stuff when I have too much, but yeah, I tend to hoard for a while as well. Because again, something dies, it's good to have a backup, right? You know, if you have a pump die or a power head die, if you have another one kicking around, it's really easy to get back up and going without missing a beat. You know, if it's your only return pump and it dies, then you're buggered, right? You're in panic mode trying to find something to get your tank up and going. So definitely worth having an extra one kicking around. Harkins. Even love Aqua Life Barrel Buddy that manages RODI system under $80. Hard to beat even with the DIY. So that's another good point, right? Like there's certain products. I don't even know what the Barrel Buddy is. I'm gonna Google this. There's certain products where it's so cheap it's harder to justify it. Have you done the new Apex update? I did one recently. Aquatic Life Barrel Buddy. Yeah. Smart ATO management. Very cool. So, Barrel Buddy. So that's what this guy is. I'm assuming it just controls your RODI. Yeah, so controls a solenoid, refills your ATO for you. Oh, very cool. So I'm doing something similar, like just with the Apex, but I'm also using Marriage Saver. Yeah, so Flood Guardian. So that's what I use on mine. But how much are those? Yeah, that's $70. Yeah, Barrel Buddy is pretty cool. I like it. Dan hates clutter. I hate clutter too, I understand. I do have backups from important stuff though. Place is a lot cleaner and more organized than when you were last here. Clear. Yeah, I don't know. I'll hang on to stuff for a while. Like I definitely have a lot of reefing stuff in the shed that should be cleaned out. Maybe it'll be a springtime thing. But like, if it's good stuff and it's like, if it says spare or a secondary model, keep those. Like anything that's current, definitely worth keeping. Phil, Silver Reef Keeper controller. Is that where your name came from, Phil? Reef Keeper? You have the Marriage Saver backup as well. Yeah, so the Marriage Saver is great. So it doesn't really ever kick in, but I have it set up on my ATL container. And then I use my aquarium controller, like in my case I have the Apex, and it turns on the outlet to the Marriage Saver, which lets my RDI fill up, and it turns it off after like an hour or so. But if something ever happened and it kept filling, then the Marriage Saver has that secondary optical sensor that would turn it off. So it kind of works as like a secondary backup. I'm always a big fan if you are setting up something to have, you know, a backup for whatever automation, especially if it's automatic top off related. So back up your backups. And again, there's also a float valve in there as well. I sell a Reef Keeper as well. Classics. Classic. Joey, I have an old Tasami auto top off that's running for 14 years, runs on a vacuum. Very cool. The super basic one back in the day, I think I just used like a Tom's Aqua Lifter on top of a big barrel jug. It was like tiniest little vacuum pump and super simple, it worked. The vacuum sensors are interesting too for auto top off, where you have like a tube and it uses the pressure as your sensor. It's kind of a cool way to do it. Insane Reefer just purchased the Tunes Osmolator because mine crapped out after 13 years. Pretty solid run. Okay, they just came out with a new auto top off. I'm like, figures, because I literally bought this like a month ago. And of course they came out with the new one. I did get the new pump though. I do appreciate the new pump. It is much quieter, way quieter than the old like style one. The horizontally one that looks like basically a mini version of pump, much quieter than the original one. So if you have a Tunesy, I would recommend the ATO if you're obsessed with quiet tanks. Then one day I need to come visit you. I'm gonna find an excuse. I love your attention to detail. What else is good for DIYs? Actually, this is a question for you guys. Is there anything that you would like to see DIY'd? I mean, most of the stuff I do, I'd come up just because I have an idea in my head and or I don't want to wait for shipping. I'm like, I'll just build one. Tom's aqua lifter is awesome. It really was. It was such a handy, inexpensive, cheap little pump, and they're great. I still have a couple kicking around. John Wright, off topic, Reef Bum stream on Jake Adams was really good yesterday. I'll have to give it a watch later. I've been catching up on some of his podcasts lately, actually, so it'll definitely come up pretty soon. So yeah, is there... Maybe I'll watch it tonight, or listen to it rather, if it's already out. Do you guys... So is there anything that you guys would like to see for DIY? Like, I've done dosing containers, reactors, auto top-offs, aquarium controllers, CO2 reactors. Like, most of the stuff, I've made DIY LEDs, but honestly, the amount of work it was, it's not really worth it. Titled gardens, not so much DIY, but customization, modifying skimmers and stuff. That could be good. Ryan, newbie question. Baking soda vs buying name brand. Either will work. There's probably some difference in purity, but I buy the aquarium stuff, but if you're in a pinch, at the grocery store, it's going to work. Have you ever done DIY dosing pumps? I did, actually. Many, 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 many years ago. Before I was even in reefing, I think I did a video on that. When I was in freshwater, I had planted tanks. And I got tired of dosing all the fertilizer, so I bought some, $10 AliExpress dosing pumps in Arduino, and I made my own doser. And that was before I think they were even mainstream to buy dosers. Now I don't even know if I would bother, because you can buy, a Jabo DC doser for less than $100. So I don't know if it's worth the effort on that one, because there's so many cheap options. But definitely doable. Back in the day, there was a lot of options, so I built my own. Tidal Garden, we just got some MRC skimmers, and there's always a bit of tweaking to make them work a bit better in a specific install. Right now I've been playing with the Bubble King minis. They are hands down probably the quietest skimmers I've ever used. They definitely live up to that name. And yeah, I've little tweaks. I haven't really done a ton yet, but I've been tweaking a bit. But the one, it's pulling out a lot of nasty, and it's super duper quiet. So so far so good. I've never used MRC though. So I am curious to know how you like them. I know they're supposed to be pretty good stuff. I saw that I can use LLS with the Hydro 0 to 10 input. That's dope. Nice. If you can hack some different brands together, I think that's pretty cool. Reefkeeper, love hearing the stories. It was very cool what they did with some of his ashes. All right, I definitely have to listen to this one now. I wonder if a robot arm will ever be cheap enough to play with for DIY application. What would you use it for? Would you frag coral with it? Would you, glue frags? Would you automate your test kits? I mean, there's robots that do that now. Chili Willy's Reef. Do you need a skimmer with fish only with live rock? You do not need a skimmer. If you have a high fish load, skimmers are beneficial to add oxygenation and more oxygen to the water. If you don't have a nutrient issue, again, you don't really need a skimmer. A skimmer is just one tool to help remove nutrients from the water. I use them because, again, to remove nutrients, and the other part of it is to add oxygen and help boost my pH. That's actually a big one for me. In my water box, I have a lot of big fish. And if my skimmer's off, there's, a substantial, probably a 0.2 drop in pH. So my skimmer on, big difference for me. So it depends. But in general, no, you don't need one. In my nano, don't bother with a skimmer. It just water change once in a while. Things are all good. I would use it to clean and scrub frag racks of a specific size. Nice. Be the fountain. What's going on, Brandy? Yeah, I don't know. Reef robot would be pretty cool. But again, auto testers are kind of a reef thing. Could you DIY an auto tester? You could. Be a lot of work. Probably not worth it, but it's doable. And again, there's always that battle of, are certain things worth it? Like, you can manually test, or you can buy a robot to do it for you and save that time. And every person's going to be different on that one. Like, some people don't want to spend the money. Some don't want to do the work. Skimmer equals ozone reactor. Yes, it 100% does. If you have not used Ozone and you have a large system, Ozone is magical. It gives you fantastic water clarity. Like, it's night and day the difference. And it is really hard to beat that other than using copious amounts of carbon. So I'm a big fan of Ozone. I always tell people, if you're going to use it, just enough, don't overdo it. But it can really do wonders. I've used cheap ozone reactors, I've used fancy ones. They both do the job. Some might be a bit better, some might be easier to clean, more replaceable, but they're all going to work. Insane Reefer, I'd like to make a DIY rail for a power head that moves across the surface and blow on top of the acres. They actually had something like that. What was it called? They had a thing that would move back and forth, and you could, have your return nozzle, your power head on it. What the heck were those called? Dan probably knows. Dan, what are they called? Or Phil, you might know. Reef. I know it's not the one I'm thinking of, but I know Innovative Marine has the little spin stream. There's the nozzle that just like spins around. But there actually is a power head one. This one. I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, 100 Sea Swirl, that's what it was. Thank you. Okay, so they do have something. It exists. Called the Sea Swirl. Yeah, and it would just move it around back and forth. It would just slowly move it. So it was like a really great way to put flow throughout your tank and mix it up. Be the Fountain. Will from Quantum USA asked people to post their OH charts for this week. What is OH? Oh, pH probably. Seems the most stable, good pH reads are people having fresh air coming in from open windows. Oh yeah, 100%. Open windows make such a big difference. If you are running your skimmer and you have, a big family, pets, tons of people breathing in your room, they're all putting out CO2 into the air, and your skimmer is going to take that CO2 from the air and mix it into your reef tank, as well as the surface agitation is going to promote gas exchange, and again, it's going to equalize with whatever the ambient air is. So if you have a lot of people, or your tank's in an office, or lots of people breathing around you, it's going to depress your pH. Now, if you have fresh air line from outside feeding your skimmer, it's going to have a lower CO2 concentration than what's inside your house. This is if your windows are closed up, right? If all your windows are open, it's kind of a moot point because you're going to have fresh air inside. But if you don't, especially like where I live over winter when the house is closed up more, you don't have all that fresh air coming in. So having the outside air to your skimmer definitely makes a big difference, because outside atmosphere is, I think it's around 390, 400-ish on average for the CO2 level. Inside your house is probably like 800 or 900. So you're getting much fresher air, lower CO2 concentration being injected into your tank, which is going to boost your pH. Mouth breathers are the problem. Brandy, just get people like little airplane masks and straws out the window, and then you'll be fine. People need to stop saying skimmers will necessarily increase your pH. Such a generic statement. There's a lot, so it depends. Exactly, Rob. So I think what I just kind of said depends. Like, it depends, is your skimmer pulling from the atmosphere, which is high CO2 in your room? Is it pulling from outside? But if you are using a skimmer that's sucking in air that has a lower CO2 concentration than in your room, aka outside air, or a CO2 scrubber, then yes, it will 100% boost your pH. What's going on, Craig? Robot warehouse first. Do it then. I feel like if anyone would have a robot in their fragging facility, it would be you. Scratch your robot warehouse itch. Refugium. Yes, refugiums definitely do help boost pH. That's from photosynthesis, so the light's on in the day, your corals are doing photosynthesis. Can't even talk tonight. And that's what boosts your pH. At nighttime, when they're not photosynthesizing, they're respirating, you have less pH. That's why it drops at night. Or refugium, opposite light schedule, you're using another place to do photosynthesis and help absorb that CO2 as it grows and boosts pH. So much more talking when I'm going solo. So on the pH front, so actually here's another good one. So something that I'm always like slightly conflicted on with reef tanks is the consumables. Like, I love filter rollers, but again, you got to replace a filter roller every 2 months, you know. CO2 scrubbers make a massive difference, but again, you got to replace that media, and that's an ongoing expense. Do a lot of people, or if you took outside air, it's, you know, it's free. It doesn't give you as much of a boost, but it's a free boost, you know, minus the effort to drill a hole and run a tube through your wall somewhere. So, I can scratch your back. So, I don't know, how many of you guys use CO2 scrubbing media? This is another good one. I'm curious. Hi from Tijuana. Very nice, Lewis. Living a good life over there. I still have a bucket of CO2 media because I bought bulk from like a vet supply place, but I've had it off my tank for a while. My pH isn't as high, but it's still pretty good for just outside air. So I'm always torn on if I throw it back on or not. Use on your 50 gallon. Use calc water, works great. Calc is like stage 1. Stage 1, I would say, dose calc water. If you're still struggling, stage 2 would be like CO2 media or outside air. And then if you're really hardcore, there's like the whole hydroxide rabbit hole. But again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Tanks in the basement, max out calc, go through way too much CO2 media. Yeah. Another interesting one too, like this is again more in the extreme thing, but if you have high CO2 in your house in general, you could also look into putting it in an air exchanger, which basically takes outside air, or what I did with my house is I have an HRV, which is a heat recovery ventilator, and it takes out outside air and it uses the inside air to pre-warm it through a bit of a baffle system, then injects it into my furnace so that it's going to help pull out some of the stale air and put fresh air into the house. Lots of newer houses have that. My house is older, so that was definitely one we retrofitted in. But again, that helped lower the CO2 in the house, which again increases the pH of the tank. So a little more extreme, you know, it's not the cheapest thing to do, but could be a good excuse to give the reef tank some love and, you know, healthier for your family. So there you go. I have a VRV on my house. I think that's HRV. There's HRV and there's just a air exchanger. Maybe VRV is the other one. Even when you use stuff supposed to be ozone safe, it gets gummy and breaks down the silicone tubing. Yeah, if you are going to use ozone, it is nasty on the stuff that has direct contact with. So you do 100% need to make sure that your skimmer is rated for ozone. Robbie's Reef. Ozone is getting interesting. I think if you're using a skimmer, scrubbing, and drying outside air. You know, I did run ozone into my skimmer with a circulating scrubber, and I was at first I was concerned if there'd be any issues or anything with the ozone interacting, you know, after the fact as it circles through the system through the CO2 media. And I didn't have any negative impacts, like everything was fine, so there's no issue there. But that is something I tried to like research. I couldn't find anything on it before I did it. Whoa, I did recirculate a big ice cap on my 75 gallon, lasted 4 days. 4 days is really quick. Like, that's insane. Like, I feel like mine's really strong for, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, and it's still good, but it does trickle down a bit after that. So a few days is like really good. Is this a new shirt? Why, yes it is. Bit of a remake of one of the classics. Did a couple new shirts, so rocking the ReefDude merch. On that note, if you want a ReefDude shirt, I started an Etsy shop, reefdudes.etsy.com. Shameless self-plug. But slowly working on different shirt designs. I'm failing at my design a week, but I think I did 2 this month, so it's good. 7.9, your curls are so pretty. So personally, 7.9 pH is probably about the low end I would be happy with. Anything lower, then I'd really be trying to push it to up my pH. Adrian, what's going on, buddy? I need to get shirts made. Then you do. Definitely need shirts. Got my shirt? Heck yeah. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so pH wise, 8 to 8.3 is the happy zone. Personally, Yeah, 7.9, I don't like it. And I used to be there. I used to be 7.8, 7.9, and that's what started my obsession with pH. And now, it's, what is it now? Let's look. Today it is 8.15 to 8.3. This is a pretty happy range, and this is not using CO2 scrubbing media on the tank. So that's, I'm happy with that. If I use CO2 scrubbing media on top of that, then it will be, closer to 8.4, 8.5. And I have a bucket. Haven't put it on yet. We'll see. I just waiting to see how it does with just outside air. My tank is struggling. Greg, you have a beautiful tank. Got the Versa for auto water change like a week ago. I'd rather spend money on the salt than the CO2 media. Fair point. With outside air line, my low pH 7.9 is good enough for now. There you go. 8.1, 8.2. Actually, see if I have my CO2 scrubber media. The differences. Yeah, 8.57, like that's probably some fresh media in there. Then 8.44, it starts to kind of average out. Struggling to find space to grow coral. That is a struggle. 8.5 to 8.2, yeah, that's up there. Insane Reefer, I know it's a big change in my pH when the grandkids come over. Yeah, people breathing. That's a lot of CO2 in the air, and that's gonna equalize with your tank, and it drops. Like, I think I had I had a Halloween party on a couple days before Halloween. I bet you that was my lowest pH day. What day was it? Probably right here. Sunday the 29th. Yeah, so Saturday they got people over. So look at 7.99, 7.93. Oh, you're not seeing my screen. So you're like, oh, which day were a bunch of people over in the house? Oh, must have been this day. So it definitely makes a big difference. Rob B, I'm a big advocate of CO2 management. I dose calc to keep stable, and it still gets me 8.2, 8.3. The problem that I have is that I have a calcium reactor, which is not necessarily a problem, but it does inject low pH water into my tank. And without a calcium reactor, if my calcium reactor is off, I definitely get a nice pH boost. So if my elk gets above 9.3, I think it is, it shuts off my calcium reactor until it drops back down again. So when that happens, I definitely get a bit of a pH boost just from that. Now, it's always a trade-off. I do love calcium reactors. They're not your biggest friend in the world for pH. So again, using something like calc with it kind of helps balance it out. But it's hard to beat how cheap they are for supplementing your tank versus dosing. Because like right now, I'm doing 5 or 6 liters through the calc water reactor. I'm dosing 43, 45 mils a minute of CO2. And I'm still dosing 100 mils of elk on top of that. If I didn't have the calcium reactor, I would be dosing crazy amounts of elk. Like, it wouldn't be the cheapest thing in the world. So I am dosing calc. I'm dosing as much calc as I evaporate. Calc is maxed out on my tank. And I'm still dosing 100 mils of my special blend hydroxide elk solution, which also boosted up, as well as what's popping through the the calcium reactor. Chewy, I'm also running MedVet CO2 media you have. Yeah, so I'm using, I think it was from MedVet. It is Carbo 2 Lime, the one that I'm using. Was using ice cap media. It was a greater pH boost from the ice cap media, but it was far more expensive. The media lasts maybe 10 to 14 days. If you are running the CO2 media through in a recirculating setup, if you're not running in a recirculating setup, it doesn't last very long. It gets used up very quick. If you are recirculating it, aka sucking the air from the skimmer cup, running it through the media, the moisture from your skimmer cup actually makes the media last longer and be more effective. So that is most definitely the way to go. So hence DIY CO2. Let's find that little thumbnail. So, Fish Ventura, haircut looks great. This is long, I actually need a haircut, but thank you. Looking like Grizzly Adams this month. Thanks for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate it there, Fish Ventura. Okay, so this, honestly, this is the cheapest, simplest mod ever, using a Tupperware container from the dollar store. CO2 media on top, drilled holes in the bottom. It's recirculating off my skimmer, extremely space efficient, and it makes the media last a long time. Like, it is so cheap and efficient and easy to do. It is like no-brainer. So if you're not recirculating it, like, honestly, try building something like that. Like, I've debated doing like a 3D printed like pretty version, which I still might at some point, but for just the cheap factor, it's hard to beat. Hoping for a Black Friday sale. Black Friday's coming up. Could be dangerous if you need reef stuff. Fish Ventura, thank you again. I appreciate that, buddy. Atkins Nature, I don't chase pH, I run a skimmer, swing 7.9, 8.1, dose all for reef corals grow, keep in alkalinity around 7 to 8. Do you know what's funny? Even on my tank, I'm neglecting trimming it, but I have, you know, a lot of corals are growing into each other now. Like, they should be trimmed. Like, I should stop caring about pH because higher pH increases growth. I'm at the point now where I don't really want it to grow more. Like, I'd be happy if I didn't have to manicure and it just stayed as it was. So, honestly, I should be trying to limit my pH growth, which sounds funny, but as long as it's above 8, I should be happy. Should not be chasing the high stuff. And that's the consideration, right? If pH is your gas pedal for coral growth, and your tank is fully grown in, and you're not really selling frags, you don't care, you just want a pretty reef tank, you should probably stop caring about pH. Like care enough that you have a healthy level, right? Because higher pH is going to mean your corals are more hardy, they're less susceptible to stuff. Where if it's, you know, 7.9 lower, I find they're more affected by stuff and they don't recover quite as easily. So that's the consideration too, right? Like, if it's your tank is looking good, you know, stuff's growing, you don't really need it to grow a lot, maybe you want to depress the pH a bit. That could be a selling point for a calcium reactor. Another interesting thing with the calcium reactors that's on my mind, a lot of people will dose stuff like PO4 to their tank. Certain calcium reactor media will actually leach a bit of PO4 along with it, which, you know, if you have high nutrients, it's a con. If you have low nutrients, it's actually a benefit to you, and you're getting some natural phosphate back into the tank. So it all depends where your level is on things. Why push for more coral growth? I have a nano and no fragrance system. Exactly, right? So again, you might not want more coral growth at a certain point. Like, one tank I want it, another tank I don't want it. Josh Allen, I converted a BRS 2-chamber reactor into my recirculating scrubber. I changed out the connector to a barb. Perfect. Nice and easy, man. Phil, I remember earlier you mentioned my attic one. So my original one, I had CO2 media up in my attic, and I started with just like the 10-inch DI container, and eventually I got these big vacuum tubes I had up there that lasted ages and ages and ages because like a ridiculous amount of stuff. So I was pulling outside air through my attic. But then I got blown in insulation in my attic, so then I scrapped that and I just left the air hose up there just because there's no way I'm crawling through insulation to change it after it was blown in on top of it. Chewy, are you using a fleece roller? I debated DIYing one that I can integrate into my Apex, but I'm hearing about a possible Red Sea sale Black Friday. No idea if the Red Sea will be on sale. I do use fleece rollers. I do like them. I don't like socks because they're a lot of work. If you have, you know, like your 20 micron, whatever socks, the fleecy ones, they're a pain to clean. If you have the nylon-y ones that you can basically rinse out, that's not as bad. But they don't catch as much of the smaller particulates. Personally, I don't think I would do socks again. I would either run a filter roller or just have nothing at all. Like, personally, just because doing socks every like 5 or 6 days, too much effort. You know, especially kids' baby life, too crazy. So, personal opinion. That being said, if you have a giant Chaeto refugium, that's basically going to work like a filter sock. It's going to catch all those particles, and it's probably going to be really nasty when you distribute your Chaeto. But, again, kind of works as a filter. Rob B, higher pH. Have seen helps boost health and resistance for issues, in my opinion, on corals. For me, it's not a growth thing. Yeah, no, I agree. I think anywhere above 8, you're pretty safe. Title Garden Stan, I still like socks. Stan, that's because you have people to clean your socks for you. If you had to do them all yourself, you wouldn't like socks. That's my 2 cents. You have sock lackeys that clean them and change them for you, so it's easy. Filter rollers are totally worth the cost of the roll. Yeah, I agree. Like when I first got filter rollers, when you first add a filter roller to your tank, it gets consumed much quicker. And over time, they're gonna last longer and longer because it's already taken all those little particulates. You are the sock cleaner. Really? Interesting. I wouldn't have thought. Crazy, man. The staff doesn't clean them well enough. Do you put them in a washing machine or do you like pressure wash them? Like, what do you do to clean your socks? For me, the problem, okay, if you have commercial and you have like laundry dedicated to that, I could agree. But if you're like a single person and you're like throwing them in your washing machine or something, then it's a little more sketchy. And especially if you have your 5-gallon pail or you stock up your nasty socks for a month and then you finally get around to washing them. Huh. Yeah, just get a case, wash them monthly. Yeah, that's fair enough. Good on you guys. I'm proud of you for doing the socks. Me? No, won't do it again. Couldn't do it. I mean, I would, but not by choice. Cheapest rolls I've seen, no sale. Fish tanks direct. Yeah, I went with the Clara C. It has some of the largest rolls out of all the filter rollers, at least when I bought it. So I have the Clara C ones. The other thing too, I went with the 5,000 on both tanks, just so I only had to buy one roll. So I don't need. And the other thought of that was the bigger the roll, the wider the roll, the longer the roll will last, the less often I have to change it. So they seem to last about 2 months for me now. And when I first got them, it was, like 5-6 weeks, and over time they seem to last longer and longer. So yeah, 2 months-ish is pretty solid off of a roll, and I will happily buy that instead of dealing with socks on a weekly basis. I rinse them when I take them out, washing machine when I have enough, no bleach, no soap, nothing. So what I did in the past, I feel like I did a load of bleach. I did bleach with mine. Or I did like one run and I did a second run to like clean it out, something like that. It's been a while. I turned socks inside out, they get sprayed really well, soak in bleach overnight, then washing machine the next day, 2 cycles. Yeah, I did dual cycles with mine. I think I did one with bleach and one without, just for like good measure. Filter rollers do have their place. I have 2, run 2 due to the volume of water. Seems overkill, man. Yeah, probably. Overkill is good though. We like overkill around here. No thanks on socks again, never again. Yeah, but so it's a trade-off, right? Like, one, you don't have to deal with it, but on the negative side, you have a consumable, right? You're now into your $20 sock every couple months. But I mean, if it costs you $10 a month not to clean filter socks and still have your water pristine, it's probably worth it. So it's on perspective. The Clarices were on sale, the rolls, a couple weeks ago, so I think I just bought 8 of them and just stocked up. So I tend to just like bulk stock up when stuff's on sale, and then you're set for a long time. I used bleach and then stopped. No, 0 difference other than I stopped worrying about the bleach. Yeah, fair enough. I think that's why I did 2 cycles when I used to do it, because I did one with bleach and then I did a second one just like a regular hot water only cycle. That was a good DIY on the battery backup. Thank you, appreciate that. I'm gonna do another one soon, but this one I'm gonna do my outdoor one with the solar. So I got the really cool self-heating battery, which I'm stoked to use. So I can actually use the lithium iron phosphate outside, which I'm excited for. But so I got one battery that they sent me, which I'm super stoked, and I'm gonna buy a couple more and then make it an actual like solid battery backup. Socks for me, no bleach, do them twice, one's hot. All right, so the dual washing is definitely a trend. I do like it. Dan has giant socks, industrial strength. Head up into the reactor. Reactors. I have DIY'd reactors in the past. It was a lot of work though. Like, I feel at the time reactors were expensive, but I feel like they're pretty cheap now. So I don't know if I would do it again for a reactor. I think I would just buy one at this point, because there's so many inexpensive ones. DIY calc reactor, classic. So definitely made those in the past and did work well with the magnetic stir. Magnetic stirs are your friend. You can do them for mixing stuff. That guy, again, use a dosing container, turn it into a calc reactor. Pretty easy to do. You know, way back in the day, 7 years ago is a while back. But again, I made my own reactors using pasta jars from the dollar store. So I mean, completely doable. But again, you can get pretty cheap dosing or reactors now. So again, I don't know if it's really worth it now. One aspect, you have a certain satisfaction of making your own stuff, which is definitely awesome. But on the flip side, sometimes you gotta look at the cost of doing it versus the cost of buying it, and is it worth it? So if you don't need something very specific, then it's always a trade-off. Chaeto reactor, classic, a little bit of a pain to clean, but that worked pretty well. The pretty version of the reactors. This was my very ghetto initial try of a calc reactor, right? A motor on top, and I made my own stir bar instead of a pasta jar. This is like dollar store calc reactor. Atkins, thinking of throwing a roller on my cichlid tank. Why not? You should, man. Honestly, like when I was in freshwater, back in the day with planted tanks, I would use saltwater tank or freshwater because I like the rear chamber to hide all the equipment so you didn't see it. So I don't know. It makes sense to use a bunch of stuff for both sides of the hobby. Why not? What do you think about the IQ20 on Ozone generator? What is the IQ20? Oh, that's the air dryer. All right. IQ20 is the air dryer. I have not bought an air dryer because I think they are very expensive. Personally, like $700. Like you can buy a full oven for the price of that, like a household oven for the price of this tiny air dryer. So I have not used an air dryer. I appreciate the idea of it, and it does make them more efficient. But my thought is, my ozone reactor, I'm only running it at 3 or 4 out of 10. So I'm only running it at 30 to 40% of its capability. So I do not need it to be more efficient. Like if it's not as efficient, I don't care because I have lots of headroom on my 200-gallon tank. Now, if you run really moist air through an ozone generator, it'll create not noxic acid. It creates some kind of an acid inside of it, which can build up. Now, that's from using moist air reacting with the ozone. Now, to do that, all you gotta do is clean your ozone generator once in a while. So I have the Poseidon 200. So I have this guy, the Poseidon 200. And again, I run it at 3 or 4 out of 10. So if it's not as efficient, I don't really care. But it doesn't show the inlet and outlets, but there's an inlet and an outlet. And, you know, once or twice a year, I will take RODI water and I will force it through it and basically rinse it out. So if any of that acid is built up inside, it basically cleans it out, and I'll blow it with an air compressor, and then it's basically good to go again. So that's what I do. I don't use a dryer. There was a point in time when I used to use the silica gel beads, but again, every like week or so I have to re-dry them, and then I have to like throw them in the oven and dry them out, and it just became too much work. It got old, so I quit using them, and I just said I don't care if it's less efficient. But if you got the cash, I mean, it makes your life easier. Your ozone will be cleaner. You won't have any of that noxic acid, and yeah, so that's what I mean. So personally, I don't know. I'm too cheap to spend that much money on one. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think you need it. And especially if you're only running a low amount of ozone, which is what I would recommend you do in the first place. Be the fountain. I bought an air dryer. I haven't installed it. Been sitting in the box for years. Yeah, a little bit of ozone goes a long way. 100% with you then. Dang, Jay. How big is your tank? I have a Poseidon 200 run at 10 and can't get my ORP over 290. First question, is your probe still good? You know, maybe it's time for a new probe. An air dryer has the same needs with an oven attached. Exactly, right? So that's all an air dryer is. It dries out the beads for you. It's probably like a mesh thing of beads that sucks the air through it, and then it heats up a coil around it and then dries it out. Just an automated fashion. So, I mean, I think they're a good idea, but personally, I don't know. I could buy a kitchen oven for that price, so I just can't justify it. And if it's less efficient, I don't care. I have lots of headroom. Just clean it once in a while and you're fine. But yeah, dude, if you are running 10 on the ozone generator and your ORP is only 290, I speculate something's up with the probe. Red Sea 425 brand new probe, Or there's a lot of freaking broken down organics in your tank, man. I don't know. That seems weird. Exactly. Then I have Poseidon 200 on 2,500 gallons, and we run it like 6 out of 10. Mine is like 3 to 4 range, like 3.5 probably. Crazy. I know there has to be some other factors on yours, Jay. I don't know what they are offhand, but definitely a few other ones. Be the fountain. I go by what my water looks like, not what the probe says. I agree. My probe is only there to tell Ozone to turn off if it hits 450, and I believe I have it set out to 420. Again, now with Ozone, since we're talking about it, I run Ozone in the middle of the night when no one's around the tank. Ozone has a very short half-life and it dissipates very quickly. But again, Ozone is not the best for you to breathe. That's why I run it when no one's around the tank in the middle of the night, and it runs for a couple hours a night. And then by the time people are on the tank, it's all gone. It dissipates in 20 minutes, whatever it is, and it's not an issue. So that's my strategy. Again, just low amount, just enough. You don't want to be cranking tons of amount. Like if you just tweak it, and if the next day your tank looks crystal clear, that's the money. You turn it down a bit, still crystal clear, you're good. Like find that just enough amount, and then it takes away any real risk of it, and your tank and your equipment, everything will thank you. All right, guys, we're a good hour in. I think I'm gonna color today because I got a lot of stuff I got to get done today. But I appreciate you guys hanging out for the random stream. Fish Ventura, thank you for the 1999 super chat. I do appreciate it. Jay, Ozone runs midnight to 8 a.m. Yeah, it's a long time, man. There's got to be something else up, because there's no way that something else is depressing it. Because look at Dan, 6 out of 10 on 2,500 gallons, and you have a Resi 4-foot tank. Like, it doesn't make sense. Something else is up. Yeah, I agree. I ignore the number. Keep it under 400. Like, less than about 415-ish, and all's good. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, if you guys got any in future DIYs on the wish list you want to see me do, let me know in the comments below, because I do love building stuff, so fills that itch for me. Do you have a big UV sterilizer that could drop your orb? I would think UV would up your orb personally, but interesting. Alright guys, if anyone wants the DIY battery backup, because this came in the mail today and it's beside me, use the code ReefDudes. Save yourself an extra 5% off. Tag it on with Black Friday sales. Heck yeah. Check the link in the description. Ryan, the multitasking master, thank you for the $5 super chat, my man. I appreciate you guys.